Hey there in TV land, this is Joe Hage. I have the privilege of leading the medical devices group on LinkedIn, which is the world's largest medical device community. And I am here today for WBBA TV. Thanks for joining us. I am here with Jim Thomas. He is the CEO and co-founder of a new company called Just Therapeutics. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I had the privilege of hearing you speak earlier today, and I heard your Chief Scientific Officer, Dean Pettit, speak today.
All right.
I'm very intrigued. I'm eager for the folks at home to be able to learn some of the things that I heard. First, tell us about the name Just.
Yeah, we had a long conversation, a couple of sessions. The people who are interested in actually joining the company early on. It was actually a good exercise because we went through a lot of names, and we actually arrived at something that spoke more directly to what we're about, kind of our mission as a whole. And Just, it stands for what you would think of as just, if it's a just and fair community, if it's just behavior. It's really about fairness and a sense of equality.
I'll tell you, you won me over at that opening sentence, and I'm sure it's part of the fabric of the, I guess now almost 24 folks you've recruited.
Yes, that's true.
So by way of background, I understand that when Amgen closed the West Coast office in 2014, there were 700 employees at that time, you among them.
Right.
After a long career at Genentech and Immunex, which was bought out by Amgen.
Right.
So a storied and successful career. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You and a couple of your good mates got together and said, we have a lot of raw talent here. Why don't we go do something just?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about when did that start brewing? Was it the announcement came out? Was it, 2 months had passed? How did the coalition, help me, you coalesced. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. How did that happen?
It was some thoughts that we had had for some time. And actually, I retired from Amgen in May of last year. And that was actually before the official announcement.
Okay.
But I had a sense that I wanted to do something different. So I started to think about this and talk to people and talk to some of my colleagues who were talking to me actually about this as well, about, they really wanted to stay in Seattle. They love Seattle. What could we do? What could we do with, this was really more after the official announcement of Amgen, but some discussion before. I had thought about this, about giving back in some ways. We had worked on these therapeutics for 30 years, in the industry. I've been privileged to be part of it for quite a long time.
And some very impressive brand names on your resume.
Yeah, and it's quite a privilege actually to do that. But many of these therapeutics are very expensive, and innovation is expensive. The manufacturing of these therapeutics, it's an expensive proposition. And so over the past 30 years, we've been working to reduce the cost of these therapies, and we've probably reduced the cost of manufacturing these by a couple of orders of magnitude. It's a lot. But if we think of a global population and reaching a global population, we really need to go down in cost, perhaps another order of magnitude. That's a big jump. We're already fairly low if you look at biologics overall compared to where we were, but to be in the range of affordability, we have to do a much better job. So that was really the core genesis. It's like, how do we get from where we are now and radically look at this problem and approach this problem with technologies that actually can dramatically reduce the cost?
Well, I think the audience, and I know I am fascinated about this. Dean gave us a little bit of a history today, and he taught me that in 1982, the cost of a bioreactor would be about $1 billion.
Well, as a plant.
As a plant, pardon me. And that making such a venture today, given the changes in the way we approach things from a molecular level, product level, a process level, and a plant level, you might be able to get that down to a quarter of that cost, or $250 million, which was fantastic enough for me. but not for you, because that's not good enough for where we need to be. You want to go an order of magnitude again.
Yes.
Have you got some early thoughts that you can share with our audience about how and where do you start?
Well, you can't start on just one thing, because it's not just one thing that you'll have to do to dramatically reduce the cost. If you look at our website, you look at what we're attempting to do, we are starting with the molecule, and we have a suite of tools that we can, from a computational point of view, we can say, if we change these residues in the molecule, we can actually manufacture it much better. And so that actually is a huge lever for us to actually, from the beginning, start with a molecule that's much more manufacturable. So we can produce it, the cells will make it better, we can purify it better, we can formulate it better. It's just more manufacturable. And then we're going to do a lot of work, and we have a lot of thoughts around starting with the current technologies that are out there and actually improving on those to intensify the production processes so that we can continue to shrink the size of the operation that we'll actually need to run those in. So if we have more productive processes, then our plant size actually starts to go down. And so we need to shrink the plant size considerably because that's where a lot of the capital costs are that are associated with this work. And then we can reduce labor cost, things like that. So it's not just one thing, it's actually a number of things across this broad spectrum of technologies that we need to focus on over time, pull these different levers that will actually, over time, help us reduce the costs dramatically.
Another point that Dean made very well today was that your name is just Biotherapeutics, but instead of thinking of you as A to Z for biotherapeutics, you are a biotherapeutic design company.
Right.
Can you help us understand what that means?
Right. Yeah, we started to think about, well, how should we be talking about ourselves? How can we make people understand really what we're about? And
here's your audience.
And yeah, so if you really boil it down to what is the common denominator in all the things that we do, it's really about design. Design of the molecule, design of the processes, all these unit operations that are required to actually produce the drug, design of the plant, and how that's actually put together to shrink it, and make it as efficient as we can, and operate it. So it's all about design, and it's the design from A to Z across this technology spectrum.
I'm very intrigued, and I have more questions in my head than I can say at once. So I'm prioritizing, given our limited time. Given your vast experience and the folks that you've collected so far, and I understand that people are finding you all the time and eager to be part of what you've started. The seeds of what you're building existed in these people a year, 2, 3 years ago, perhaps not as mature as they are now. Instead of saying why aren't, let me ask, are the companies from which you hail, Amgen I know is still a significant supporter and with you on this, are they attempting to make these design modifications to the molecule, the product, the process, and the plant as well? And you guys are saying, yes, but we're going to do that exclusively with a laser-like focus that no publicly traded company can afford to do? Is that the difference? Because I have to imagine that the insights that will propel Just Forward are ones that will well serve everyone in that industry.
No, it's a very good question. And yes, they are. And I was part of leading some of those efforts when I was part of Amgen, and actually before that, Immunex. The challenge you have in a larger company, or even a small company, but a large company that has a rich pipeline, and Amgen has an incredibly rich pipeline. It's a very good company, outstanding science that's there. We had so many molecules to work on, it's really the molecules and getting the products out the door, getting them developed, and it's a highly regulated environment. So it's actually a very complicated process to actually develop the processes that are actually used to manufacture and release these important therapeutics. But that is the core focus, and it should be. It's the pipeline, for us, and it was moving those projects forward. The technology piece, we did the best we could with the resources that we had available and what we could work with vendors around and potentially
hitting your quarterly numbers.
Yeah, it was more of an ancillary thing. Although we tried to make it as major as possible, because we knew there was a lot of rich opportunity there. The pipeline was first, and again, that's the way it should be. With just the technology as the center of the target for us. So what we will do is we will have a laser focus on those areas. There are multiple areas, but laser focus on the technology across the spectrum to be able to accomplish this. And we will do products. We'll apply the technology to products. They'll have to be products that are carefully selected from a risk perspective. We will work on likely some biosimilars. We will probably work as much as we can in infectious disease, because those preclinical models tend to be more straightforward. So that's a de-risking exercise for us. So we'll apply the technology, but the center of the fairway for us is the technology, and the value that we believe we can bring to the people that we work with, and potentially as an industry as a whole is again to innovate in this space so that we can serve a global population.
Just as we're talking, I'm making a parallel with friends in the industry who are in the design and development business, and I can visualize and understand how they make their money. They are hired consultants to help people do their process better. Can I think of you the same way?
Well, we're applying that internally,
because I understand from your revenue plan that consulting services will be one of the ways that you generate revenue, and that you made this choice and you had these conversations with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yes, that's true.
To be a for-profit organization versus a not-for-profit, a very deliberate choice on your part, so that this expertise that you're building, you very much want it to be available widely. So the work that you're doing, you'd love to see replicated at the companies that are presently operating, and that expertise and that consulting could be a rather considerable source of revenue for you. Have I got that right?
Well, the consulting at this point has been primarily focused around the foundation's needs. So the Gates Foundation they have a lot of potential interesting projects that they're supporting in the network and their global health network. And our expertise, the subject matter experts, are in this area of protein therapeutics. So the consulting that we're doing, it's really more for the global good around their projects per se.
Okay.
In terms of the technology, we are a for-profit company, and we want to try to leverage that as much as we can, partnering with other companies to work on molecules that would be potentially, some would be early stage. Some would be potentially later stage molecules if it's let's say a proven target like a biosimilar that could be with any number of companies. But we have value in the platform. Over time, yes, there will be change, and the things that we do and things that we contribute to this platform, to this technology, will eventually be disseminated.
So. If we look at your income statement 5-10 years from now, what is the number one percentage of the revenue that you bring in? What is that line item?
It will be product based. It will be product based.
It will be a biotherapeutic. It will be.
It'll be a biotherapeutic. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But it will be through applying this technology to those products.
You're doing something very exciting. I'm very pleased to meet you. I understand that you are doing a Series A followed by a B, and I asked you off camera, so what happens if people want to invest? And you said, we are well loved by the community in which we work and that things are looking pretty good, but what if somebody comes up to me and says, Joe, that Jim guy, I just have to be part of this. How might I direct them?
Well, we will have a Series B because we will need to increase some of our infrastructure to carry out the vision. And we hope to do that within the next 2 years.
Okay.
So we'll be looking for additional investors, and we'd be happy to talk to anyone.
You heard that, folks. This is Joe Hage. I am reporting live for WBBA TV. I've had the privilege of speaking with Jim Thomas. He's the CEO and co-founder of Just Biotherapeutics. Jim, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.